Imagine a guy invents a machine that knows accurately when you're going to die, right? So you go and you pay the guy $5 and he types in something and he says, you're going to die on January 7th, 2049. So if that machine existed, what would we do with it? How would it change things? Because it would probably change everything. And it was just an 8-page short story by a guy named Robert Heinlein. But it got me thinking about these questions of why. If we notice something coming along, if the fax machine gets invented, if Zoom teleconferencing gets invented, how will that change everything? And I've used that pattern over and over again of thinking about how a technology or a cultural shift changes things we don't expect it will change.
So the question is this: how do thought leaders, school dropouts, former and current students find out what's next after they do or don't cross that stage? If you want to know the secrets to starting the career or business of your dreams, getting paid whatever you desire, and discovering what you do the best with the least amount of effort, then this is the right podcast for you. I'm Shawn Anthony, and this is School's Over, Now What? The podcast. Welcome to School's Over, Now What? The podcast, and I'm your host, Shawn Anthony. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. If this is your very first time clicking that button, whether you're on Spotify, whether you're on iTunes, Podbean, whatever platform that is for you, I just want to say welcome. But I want to let you also know what this show is about. Each and every single week, we have continued to bring you an inspiring person or a message that's going to help answer the question we have all at some point in our lives asked ourselves, and that's school's over, now what? And since the launching of the show in June of 2018, it's completely blown up, and thankful for you, and thanks to you, it has remained as a top 100 business podcast on iTunes. And I appreciate you guys so much. And I want to let you know how we kick this thing off with the review of the week. And this week's review of the week comes from Jasmine R. And she wrote, "This podcast is perfect for those that may be a little lost and in need of a nudge in the right direction. The chats are informative, will help change your mindset for the better, and will leave you feeling more optimistic than before. I recommend. Hashtag get your mindset right." Jasmine, I appreciate you for tuning in and listening and leaving such gracious review. And guys, if you're listening right now, if you haven't already, scroll down to the bottom of iTunes, click that 5-star rating, and leave your review today. It's helped us do tremendous things. All right, let's get to the reason you clicked that button today. And today's guest, guys, I don't know where the icon button is right now or where the legend meter is right now, but it's none other than the Seth Godin. Guys, Seth is the author of over 19 international bestsellers. He's been translated in over 35 languages. Just think about that. He's also inspired millions of entrepreneurs, marketers, leaders, and fans from all walks of life. His blog, his online courses, lectures, and throughout all of his many best-selling books. It was an honor to sit down and have this conversation with him. And what I like so much about this interview is that we're going to bring him into the School's Over Now What world, right? This is not a marketing talk. It's a talk with the best marketer in the world about the issues that our listeners care about. Grab your pencil, grab your paper, and if you're driving right now, click that save button so you can play this later, whether you're working out in the gym or you're at home studying, and get ready for this one. Episode 91 with none other than the Seth Godin. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast today. I am here with a guy that is so special. He is a marketing guru. I like to think that, guys, he by far helped us and invented the internet. The one and only best-selling author, Seth Godin, is on the show today. How you doing?
You're very kind. I might have invented like one little tiny dot over an I in internet, but I did not invent the internet. But it's great to talk to you.
By far, man. I'm just excited to get you on this call today and kind of have you out here and kind of share a little bit people, things about you that they know typically might hear about. And people always love to hear about people's background and where they come from. Tell us a little bit about, Seth, a young kid growing up.
Well, one of the traps we fall into is we would like to think that other people are different, better, special, got a lucky break, whatever it is, because if that's true, then we're off the hook. And I, like you, have studied a lot of people who are successful. And the only thing they have in common is that they're different. And so there's no way to tell when you look at 7-year-old Seth or 15-year-old Seth that I'm going to be the person that I ended up being. So yeah, I got so many lucky breaks, great parents. I won the birthday lottery in so many ways, but that's not available to anybody else because everyone's unique. And I'm really focused on what do we do now with what we've got as opposed to focusing too much on what we didn't get.
Man, that's powerful, man. I mean, you're the seventh, you said the 7-year-old, the 15-year-old Seth. Take us back. You mentioned a lot of breaks, right? What was one of the first breaks at a young, early childhood that you say, you know what? I was lucky to have gone through that.
Well, for sure, the biggest break is being born in 1960 in the United States, growing up in a house with great parents, being male, being white, being on the right side of the tracks. These are things that gave me the benefit of the doubt with so many people and institutions that I bumped into, that I interacted with. And it's easy to forget that we get this privilege. But if you get on a plane and fly to a place where people grew up with no electricity, or go to a place where people are always having to justify their very existence, you realize how much harder it is when you don't have the ability to connect or to be trusted or to make a difference. So that's the biggest one by far. And then on top of that, my parents encouraged me to ask hard questions, to fail. I started my first business when I was 14. It failed. I did another one when I was 16, and it sort of worked, but I didn't make any money, but it was fun. And like just over and over again, having this pattern of, I made this. Let's see what happens.
Wow, man. I mean, so you had this pattern, man, of just, and so you started business at 14. So that's where I connect with you so quickly. At the age of 14, I started a business myself, man. I started throwing parties after watching my brother, and I became a very popular party promoter. And I threw a party, the very first one, a high school graduation party, and we made $6,000 at the age of 14.
Well done.
So I connect with you quickly on that, man. So Seth at 14, what was that first business?
Well, there were a few. There was this thing on the computer. I was on the internet a really long time ago, and called biorhythms, which is sort of a junk science thing where everyone has 3 monthly rhythms in their life: a physical rhythm, an emotional rhythm, and I don't know what the third one was. And if you take a calendar and you plot them out, you could figure out if it's a good day for you or not. And so I sold those like horoscopes for $5 each. I also had, the usual newspaper delivery route and small businesses selling stuff. Had a business making candles. And then when I was 16, I started a ski club because I grew up in Buffalo. And you weren't supposed to start a ski club if you weren't an adult. But my dad's like, whatever, go ahead. So I chartered buses, like the same way you did with parties. And we had 40 kids going every Friday night. And the reason it was on Friday nights is because I was unpopular and didn't go to parties. So I built sort of the ski club for unpopular people.
Man, that sounds like a good hustle. That sounds like a good hustle. So you obviously have been somebody that a lot of people study. Quite often you're seen as one of the most intelligent people in any room you step in. At the age of 14, going on to 15, were there certain courses or were there certain classes that were just capturing, your interest?
So, just about everybody listening to this has access to a library, whether it's a real life library or the library of the internet. And starting about the age of 11, I started reading science fiction books. And I worked my way from Isaac Asimov to Roger Zelazny, from the A's to the Z's at the Clearfield Public Library. I read every single one of them. And I learned so much from these people, men and a few women, who were describing a future that wasn't here yet. And what I learned from that is the future arrives whether you want it to or not. The question is, what are you going to do about how it changes the world? And so a good hard science fiction book, as opposed to like fantasy stuff, which I'm not that into, says, well, but what would happen if, one I'm thinking of right now, imagine a guy invents a machine that knows accurately when you're going to die, right? So you go and you pay the guy $5 and he types in something and he says, you're going to die on January 7th, 2049. So if that machine existed, what would we do with it? How would it change things? Because it would probably change everything. And it was just an 8-page short story by a guy named Robert Heinlein. But it got me thinking about these questions of why. What, if we notice something coming along, if the fax machine gets invented, if Zoom teleconferencing gets invented, how will that change everything? And I've used that pattern over and over again of thinking about how a technology or a cultural shift changes things we don't expect it will change.
Hey guys, so let me take a guess. You're enjoying the show. And if that's right, please make sure that you take a screenshot of you listening to the podcast right now and tag me at Shawn R. Anthony _. I promise you this is going to help in amazing ways. And while you're at it, hit the 5-star rating and subscribe. With that being said, guys, let's get back to the show. Man, I mean, that's powerful, man. I mean, you gotta think about it. Hearing you say that, if I knew 2049, it was it, I would be running out of this room right now. So I definitely can only imagine, even at that age, reading that, what that did for you and creating a sense of urgency. So when was it for you, Seth, where you realized after reading all these books that, marketing, right? Helping people realize certain tactics was a direction that you could pursue?
So I have defined marketing as something different than a lot of other people. Marketing for me is not advertising. Marketing is not tactics or a hustle. Definitely not a hustle. For me, marketing is everything we make, how we talk about it, and most of all, the change we make in the world. So you deciding to make this generous podcast is a marketing decision. A restaurant deciding not to serve kids' meals is a marketing decision. A company that decides to dump or not dump crap into the river is making a marketing decision, because ultimately what we do when we go to work is we make a change happen, and that change, it has repercussions, and I call that change marketing. So if we can be smart about it and do it on purpose, then we're going to get the results we want.
Man, I mean, I think that's a huge point and valuable insight that you just added there. So I want to keep going on this timeline because I think it's so interesting for me right now, just learning more about, you, right? And as you decided, what, I got all this education I got from the public library, right? I have this desire to learn. I read from A to Z. Right? How did you, because a lot of people listening to this right now are trying to figure out, should they even go to school or go to college? How did you make that decision to pick the establishment universities that you have already in the past?
Yeah, so the world is different now. In 1978, it would have been insane for someone with my privilege to not go to college, because getting that piece of paper open the door to a huge range of stuff to do. Because remember, you couldn't show your work in those days. Mm-hmm. All you could show was your resume. And that's different than now. You needed to make sure that your resume gave you the chance to get the job where you could do the work. So, when I went to college, you were required to take 4 courses a semester. I took 6 because it was the same price. But I also didn't care what my grades were. So I had one notebook for all 4 years of college. And all I wanted to do was expose myself to new ideas. And along the way, I was super lucky. I met a guy who became my business partner, and the two of us co-founded with two other people the largest student-run business in America. And we had 400 employees while we were going to college. And there's no question that I learned more from building tough student resources than I did from going to class. And I learned about interacting with other people. I learned about launching new businesses. I learned about finding customers. I learned about making sales. I learned about making a budget. I learned about not going out of business. That was huge. And so at that point, I was committed to the lifestyle of the entrepreneur because I realized sooner or later I needed to be my own boss. But again, in 1980, being your own boss was much harder than it is now. So I think if you're sitting there saying to yourself, school isn't for me, I might say to you, what could you do while you're still in school that would change everything? Because quitting school is pretty irrevocable. But going to school and then in all of your spare time building something, building a body of work, leading and connecting, what better moment to do it when everyone else thinks you're just supposed to be in school? Because you're off the hook, you've got room and board maybe covered. This is the time to take that huge risk, not when you need to make a living doing it, but when you just want to make a difference.
Man, that's so huge. And I hope somebody right now is listening to this. I think they probably just pulled out a pencil, pulled out a notepad and wrote that down, because what's so significant about what you said is that while you're in school, if you have this ability to go out here and start a business, you don't have that liability of wondering about whether or not you have to go to work or whether or not, if you don't even have kids, you don't have those things. So why not go for it now? Right. And I'm listening to you and I'm wondering if you grew up in this generation and, in this time, and you looked at 2020 as the year where you were about to pick a university, having all the tools we have now, Instagram, Twitter, what decision would you make?
Well, the biggest thing is famous colleges are not the same as good colleges. And we got tricked into thinking that if a college is Harvard or Princeton, or if a college has a big football team, it's good. No, it's not good. It's just famous. So I would ignore how famous a college is and get really serious. If I'm going to spend 4 years of my life and hundreds of thousands of dollars in opportunity cost, is that place going to challenge me? Or am I going just for the parties? Is that place going to set me up to do experiments, to be in the world and in the marketplace? Or is it isolating me in a form of high school, but just with more binge drinking? Because we don't need more high school for sure. And there are a couple jobs where you need a degree, but mostly what you need is a body of work. So one of the colleges that I'm really interested in is Northeastern. Northeastern is the hardest school on the East Coast of the U.S. to get into in terms of sheer numbers. The reason it's hard to get into is 93% of the people who go graduate with a job. And the reason they all have a job is because you have to go for 5 years, not 4, and you have to spend at least one of the years you're in college actually doing work on a co-op where you are getting paid. So Northeastern spends most of its time not finding fancy professors, but finding co-ops for people to go into the real world and do a job. And if you, 5 years into it, have done the work, showed up in class, learned something, but also done 2 co-ops, 3 co-ops, and have glowing letters from the people you've worked with, you are so far ahead of people who just sat through English literature class. There's no comparison. But I'll go one step further, which is, one of the businesses, we started 30 businesses when I was at Tufts. One of them was a birthday cake service. So here's how it works. There were 4,000 people at Tufts. We went to the dean of students. We got the list of every kid sorted by when their birthday was. And we got their home address. So 1 month before a kid's birthday, we sent a letter to their parents. And we said to their parents, hey, your son or daughter is having a birthday in 4 weeks. Would you like to send them a birthday cake? It's $40. And like a third of the people we sent a letter to said, yeah, here's $30. Because it's your kid. Yeah. And then we did a deal with a local bakery and we got the cakes for $12. So we made, $18 to pay the delivery people and ourselves. And we sold more than 1,000 cakes a year. That project taught me way more than I learned in a course. So if I'm looking for a college, a place where I'm going to spend these years, I want to know who else is there, who's in my cohort, what am I challenged to do, and am I going to be able to start a birthday cake business?
Man, I mean, that example, I'm sure someone listening right now, they're going to like, hey, can I do that again now? That example is so spot on. You obviously have learned, I mean, you've learned so much, right? You've learned so much in terms of business, which leads me to just the thought process of the books that you've created. So the co-producer of this show, right? The co-producer of this show is Fit and Joseph. And he wanted me to ask you this question. He's like, dude, you gotta ask him this question. He's a huge fan of yours, right? So The Dip is one of his favorite books of all time, right? Along with Gary Vee's Crush It, right? But the Dip helped him establish how to start his web design business, right? And without that business, he would have never have met me. And so I just want to thank you indirectly for helping us create school, for creating Schools Over Now with the podcast. And he thinks The Dip is so underrated. And I want to know, like, from you personally, right? Where does The Dip rank for you amongst your many best-selling books?
Well, it's a little like asking which is my favorite kid, but leaving that aside for a minute. Each book that I write for myself in the sense of, I wish I had read this before. Because if I had read this, it would have saved me a lot of time and suffering. That writing a book that I think is going to resonate with other people, it's sort of like putting a sign on the side of the road that says, careful, there's a pothole up ahead. Why don't you go this way instead? And the magic of The Dip is that I have heard from way more people than almost any other book I've written to say, I heard you. I saw something and I changed. Well, that's why I write the book. So that's why it ranks.
Wow. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's going to be satisfied with that answer. He's going to really, really appreciate the fact that, you know, you broke it down. And so how important for a creator, right? Leads me to this, just thinking about it. How important is it for a creator to create things for themselves?
Okay. So you can be a cancer doctor and oncologist without having had cancer. And you can design toys for toddlers, even though you're not 2 years old. That built into what it means to be a professional is that you have empathy, that you are not only doing it for yourself. You have an understanding of what you have in common with the person you seek to serve, or if you don't have anything in common, you learn to think and desire the way that they do. So one of the things that they did when they were designing Legs pantyhose, because the whole team that worked on it was male, is they started wearing pantyhose to work under their clothes. And you don't have to be a woman to think about how to make pantyhose better. So obviously, when I'm writing a book, I know what's in it. So I don't have to publish it. I'm publishing it for other people. And part of the craft of being a successful creator is the practical empathy of realizing you don't know what they know. You don't want what they want. You don't believe what they believe. And that's okay. Because you still have to go to where they are. You cannot demand people go to where you are.
And that's so important. I mean, to go where they are, right? And building something, right? And building a community or something. And so often you see people put up all these ads and you wonder, are they doing the right thing? Are they going to the right place? What would you give a marketer, right, that's listening to this right now and they're thinking, hey, should I even do ads, right? Is Instagram a platform or LinkedIn? What would Seth's advice be in terms of that?
Okay, so there's a bunch of things to understand, and I cover this a bit in the book, This is Marketing. There are two kinds of advertising, brand ads and direct ads. Direct ads are ads where you spend $1 and you hope that within a week you get back $1.50. These are ads that pay for themselves as they go. In the old days, they used to have a little coupon or an 800 number on them. But now, Facebook ads, ads online, Google ads, these are direct marketing ads because you can measure them. And if you measure them and they make money, run more of them. Run as many as you can until they stop making money. That's how direct marketing works. That's why you've heard of the Columbia Record Club or the American Express card. These are direct marketing businesses. Then there are ads that are brand ads. Brand ads don't ask you to take action, but one day you will. So a Mercedes, they've got to run $1,000 worth of ads against one person, against you, to get you to buy a Mercedes. They don't know which of the $1,000 worth of ads are going to pay off. It's going to take years, and they don't know. But if they stop doing it, their business is going to fail. So if you're going to be in the brand advertising business, you need good resources and you need a lot of guts. If you're in the direct marketing business, you just got to start, right? Go spend $12. And if you don't make $20, run better ads and keep trying until you find the formula. But the reason that Google has collected so many billions of dollars worth of ad revenue is because you only need to buy $12 to get started. And once it works, you buy infinity.
Man, that's such a valuable content because now, right? And I'm pretty sure you can attest to this back in, in the 70s and in the 80s, it cost a lot more to get in certain magazines than it does with Facebook. You can get in a Facebook ad right now for $1.
That's right. Whereas a magazine ad costs $40,000. One of the things I invented a really long time ago when they had VCR tapes, this is long before YouTube or DVDs, was a tape of an aquarium. So, and you didn't have to have any real fish. You could just play for an hour and a half the fish swimming back and forth on your TV. And the other thing I invented to go with it was the fireplace. So you could just have a fire burning on your TV. And I said to myself, well, how am I going to sell these things? I didn't even make them. I just thought of the idea. So I call up American Airlines, because American Airlines, as you know, has that magazine in the plane.
Yeah.
And I said, can I run a direct marketing ad in the back? And if it works, I'll split the money with you. And they said yes. They gave me a $15,000 ad for free on the come, because if it worked, we were going to split the money. And I wrote a pretty good ad. And I promised myself that if I got 20 orders, then I would make the tapes. If I got less than 20 orders, it would be a fail, because the tapes cost $20 each to buy. And so I go to my post office box a week and a half later, and I had 8 orders, just 8. Now, if I had bought a $15,000 ad and only gotten $160 worth of sales, that would have been really bad.
Yeah.
And so I wrote a nice letter to all 8 people, sent them a free gift, sent them back their money. And you guessed it, the next time I went back to the post office box, I had 15 more orders. But I'd already decided not to make it, so never made the videotapes. Point is, American Airlines lost because they ran an ad for free. I lost because I didn't get my shot to work. But it's totally different than spending $1 on Facebook.
Totally different, man. And thank you so much for just sharing that. I mean, which by far is valuable. Seth, I got to ask you the question. I'm curious to hear your take. And I know you're not too big on giving a whole bunch of, like they say, advice, right? You're not a fan of that word, I've read. So, but I got to ask you this question. We've asked everybody on this show. If you were that person, whether you just graduated college, whether you dropped out, or whether you're considering, what to do next in your life, and asking yourself the question of the show, school's over, now what? What advice would Seth give?
Oh, it's pretty simple. It's time to be of service. School was about being a victim, a cog, a piece in the machine that trained you to be a compliant worker in a factory. School was about you proving you were paying attention by doing okay on a test. School is about receiving stuff from other people. School's over, so now it's time to be of service. You told me 25 minutes ago about the party you threw. No one came to the party as a favor to you. You ran the party as a favor to them. Nobody buys something that costs $10 unless they think it's worth $15. That means you are being of service. Who can you show up for in a way that they will be glad you came? And this is why I don't believe in hustle. Hustling people, no one says, I'm really glad you hustled me. I'm really glad you invaded my personal space and used social pressure to get me to do something I didn't want to do. No one likes that. But if you can be of service, if you can be missed when you're gone, you can do that over and over again, forever.
Wow. I mean, it's just amazing advice there, man. Going in and being of service to people and leading that way, it will forever change anything that you do. Seth, I know someone's wanting to know more about you, right? Just give them all of like your promotion and where they can find out more about you and what you have going on.
Well, I spend most of my time running workshops. They're not online classes. They're actually people connecting with one another to make change happen. The average person in our workshops gives and gets 500 pieces of feedback a month. You can learn about them at akimbo.com. That's AKIMBO. We've got one for freelancers, one for marketers. We've got one for podcasters. We've got one for professional creatives. We would love to have people join us. Our flagship is called the Alt MBA, and you have to apply to get in, and it's pretty special. But if you just want to read my blog, there's 7,000 free blog posts. Just type Seth into your favorite search engine, and there I will be.
Seth, man, thank you so much for being a part of the show. And I'm all about giving people their flowers while you're still here. I just want to let you know, man, you're a legend in what you've already done in life. And you've impacted more people than you know, man. And I'm forever grateful and appreciate for having you on the show today.
Wow. That's very special, Shawn. And the same is back at you. Every person who is listening to this show week after week appreciates the fact that you're turning on lights. And once people learn to see, they can't unsee. So thank you for that.
And you're welcome, man. And for those you're listening, always remember, dream it, believe it, go out and get it. Yo, what you think? I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I want to know what you learned. So if you wouldn't mind, would you take a screenshot of you listening to the podcast on your phone right now? Upload to your Instagram stories, tag me at Shawn R. Anthony _, and then let me know in that Instagram story what is one thing that you learned. I love hearing from you, my listeners, thought leaders, former or current students all around the world. Let me know. And while you're doing this, go inside the podcast app, subscribe, leave a 5-star review and a 5-star rating. Again, this helps us reach more people. And if you want to be a part of this mission, helping us change the world one person at a time, it makes a massive difference by you leaving a review. Thanks so much. I'll see you next week. And remember, dream it, believe it, go out and get it.